So what we do when we say imagine, we continue to talk, feeding them with our own imagination, not giving them the opportunity to indeed imagine. So I'll give you about 30 seconds to 60 seconds of my 10 minutes to imagine. To imagine a situation where science and technology finds a way to create something as small or maybe even bigger than the brain box and put it after the combustion cycle but before exhaust in a car. And they call it CCB, the carbon capture box. It means that device will strip out of the emissions that comes from our vehicles, carbon, and release oxygen into the air. It's an interesting thing to imagine. And they've done it not for vehicles just yet. It's been done for plants. For manufacturing plants, they have done it. We have carbon capture and storage or utilization technology that can be applied at the point of exhaust to strip out carbon up to about 90 to 95%. When that day comes, because it will, then perhaps we will recognize that the enemy is not crude nor gas. What we're solving for is the removal of carbon or methane or both from our environment. That's the challenge here. The solution is energy. That's what we're going for. Africa has a gap, a huge gap. We have the lowest number of connected people to power in the world. And in Africa, Nigeria takes the cake. 600 million of Africa's 1.3 billion people have no access to power. So we talk about energy insecurity. We talk about energy access. In Nigeria, 43% of our people have never seen electricity. We have crude, we have gas, perhaps more than most countries on the continent. We're perhaps the 7th largest producer in the world. We continue to flare or re-inject. We commercialize very little of our gas. We're used to selling crude, and now the world is telling us we need to stop pumping for it. Of course, many African nations are jittery about this, because this for us is not only about energy transition, it is about revenue protection. It's about survival. The existential survival of our economy is what we're discussing whenever in Africa we discuss energy transition. So whether it's the poor African woman who continues to burn wood or charcoal to cook, or a country in Europe that's cranked up the use of coal all over again. One hand on that button, running a coal plant, and then the mouth to the microphone talking about energy transition. It's a question of survival. For something on the one hand as basic as cooking, feeding, and on the other hand as staying warm and not freezing to death. In my presentation, there are many numbers that you have seen before. Many reasons why Africa needs to ensure that this is indeed the decade that we ramp up and accelerate our investments in renewable energy. Because this is the decade that we must ensure that we industrialize Africa. We power the digital economy, because there's no digital economy without energy. We put the youth of Africa that we always speak about into gainful employment. This is that decade. This is the decade to leapfrog. It's an advantage to Africa that we're transitioning energy-wise. Unlike the West, we don't have that many plants to decommission. The conversation for us now is to bridge the gap with renewable energy, not to decommission existing plants. Meet current demand with renewable energy. That's the conversation that we must have. I missed the era of social evolution when Aristotle postulated about political and social systems, the structured way for the new age. Confucius did the same in the Far East. I missed that. And I missed the Industrial Revolution and all the 3 world wars. So the opportunity to die a hero's death on the field of battle, I missed that too. The internet revolution, I kind of missed as well as an active participant. I'm only a user. But I'm in the mix of the energy revolution. We have no excuse. We're here. We're not missing that. So we need to decide, what role do we want to play in the energy revolution for Africa? We're the ones clamoring that we must continue to pump for oil and gas because we have plenty. Therefore, we should be the ones spending, encouraging technology, investing in research to find that CBB. Because once we have a way of taking carbon out of our environment, ensuring that it does not even escape the machines or the vehicles or the plants, then we can continue to pump for oil and gas. 2 years ago, we were faced with another existential challenge as a world, an immediate one. We pumped money into science and we put pressure on science. In less than a year, we had a vaccine. We're all here in this room today unmasked because the vaccines work. Science traced the origin back to bats. But how many bats have we exterminated? How many meat shops in Wuhan have we shut down? Why is the agenda about shutting down oil wells and killing oil companies, starving oil companies of required funds? If we indeed shut in our wells today as oil and gas institutions, the world will literally go into a tailspin. Let's focus on what we're solving for. Let's focus on the solution. As Oando Clean Energy, a full subsidiary of an oil and gas company, we will pursue clean energy, as the name states. But we will continue to pump for oil and gas on the other arm of the business because the world still needs it. The solution must be found by those who are pushing the agenda for renewables, myself inclusive, and those who insist that we must continue to pump for oil and gas. I have heard in Africa's accent, many argue, but Africa only produces 3.8% of GHG emissions. What do you mean we're choking the earth? If America and Europe and China can just reduce pressure on the throat of Mother Nature, then maybe Africa can then increase its own pressure, and then we arrive at 15 to 18% emissions, and that's equity. No, the solution is not about balancing the choke. The solution is about we all taking off the pressure, finding the solution together, working together,